Hey everybody, welcome to the Forbes Factor. It's one of my favorite hours of the entire week. And if you've been following me as 2024 began, I am on a tour around the world. Lately I've been speaking. I was in North Carolina. I was off in Utah. I've been in Salt Lake City, Phoenix, Arizona, which is where we're doing this broadcast live in studio. And because many of you can see and can hear my guests, I'm so excited to talk about real estate, wealth preservation. There's so many things that we're going to discuss today with a man that I really kind of picked off stage. I watched him do a presentation. We'd met many years earlier, but blown away. There's a style about him, there's an energy, and he's going to talk to us about how he bought 52 houses in 52 days. Oh my gosh, I've never heard that insanity before. He's going to share those secrets, especially for those of you who are dabbling in real estate. He is a master of that, and I appreciate that so much. So before I leave, a couple things. As always, if you guys want to up your networking, and I will tell you, after COVID, we are back. We are doing live events, and I watch so many people just blow it. Hi, who are you? What do you do? I'm in real estate. I'm a digital marketer. Ugh, incredibly boring. So if you want to know how to upgrade your networking, that is my specialty. We have a thing called 1 Minute to Millions, and I would love to give the template to you completely for free. Anybody want free? Raise your hand. Yeah, everybody wants free. Simply go to www.freegiftfromforbes.com. You'll download that and you'll be astounded. And if you fill out the answers to that, all of a sudden you'll be able to answer the question, what do you do, in a coherent, amazing, engaging way so people give you a yes. And if you're someone who's so tired of knocking on doors, literally or figuratively, and not having people listen to your ideas, that is my specialty, how to get heard. Doesn't matter what you want to say, it's what people are listening to, how they're reacting, are they taking action, are they buying your product, coming to your event? And for so many of you, I know that answer is no. I don't live in a world of no. In fact, if you take a piece of paper and you write no across of it, N-O, it means stop, it means not now, it means all those things that no means. But if you turn it on its head and you put N and then O below that, you know what you get? Never-ending opportunity. That's the kind of no's that I want. Those are no's that mean go. Somebody tells you what you can't do, you go, man, that's what I'm off to be doing. All right, so let's introduce my first and only guest for the hour. I'm excited to have Mr. Dolph Darrus here. More than a real estate investor, one of the smartest, patient, insightful men that I have ever had the honor to meet. So give a big round of applause. Hello, hello. And for those of you watching live, he's been sitting here the whole time, so patient, pretending to go, she's adorable. So, but by the way, the other thing is we're simulcasting. I've just started doing this on YouTube. Head over to my YouTube channel. It's just my name on YouTube. There are thousands of hours of insight, motivational moments, TV series that I have done since the 1977.
That is phenomenal.
The very first TV appearance I've ever done, I found it on YouTube, and now you can see it as well. They can see the $20,000 pyramid that I guest starred on. You can see my movies, my television. You could spend an entire lifetime in my channel, but head on over there and you'll be able to see the visuals of Dolph and I having this conversation. All right, without further ado, Mr. Dolph Darrus.
Forbes, thank you so much for your kind words. I love you, you know that. I love what you do. And by the way, if you're watching this, if you're listening, take Forbes up on her offer, get her free download and find out what it takes, not just to describe what you do. And someone says what you do, most people think they've got to give an accurate description. And sometimes accurate is extraordinarily boring. No, it is. I'm a realtor.
That's true.
I mean, that's accurate.
It is. Thank you. It is accurate.
But we have something like 14,000 of them here in the Valley. You've got to describe I create people's dream homes, or or do something that makes
I'm
them
a first-time home buyer best friend.
Yes.
Literally, you change the intro, and all of a sudden people go, "Oh my gosh!" Or I'm the investor with the most. What does that mean? I take people's money and I can 10x it like a Chris Krohn or those guys. Right.
Right. So I teach real estate, but I don't teach real estate. There are 200 self-appointed real estate gurus in this country, all teach real estate. And by the way, I don't think there's such a thing as a bad teacher. There are good teachers and slightly better teachers than others, but any information you get can help you on your path to success. So what I create for people is freedom. Financial freedom, emotional freedom. And if you really want to go to the higher level, we spend a week on the shores of Lake Como in Italy, where there's no agenda, where what we teach depends on what the people who turn up need to learn to go to the next level. We give them freedom in their relationships and their attitudes to their kids and how they see the world. This is the sort of thing that people want in their lives, not, oh, I'm a realtor, or a fancy word like I'm a dust relocation engineer for someone who does the cleaning.
All right. So did you just get a flavor for this man's level of excellence and confidence? That is something that can be learned as well. Did you know that?
Yes, it can.
Was there a time when you were not confident?
I don't think so. I'll never forget when I was about 7 or 8 years old, we had some guests come to our school. It was a primary school, as we called it then, so lower school here it's called. This was down in New Zealand. And some guest spoke, and then the teacher came up to me while he was on stage and said, would you mind going up and giving a thank you afterwards? And
Really? As a little boy?
Yeah, I was 8.
Oh, wow.
And instead of blanking out, I mean, the teacher asks you, you say yes, you don't say, no, I don't feel like that, or I'm wearing the wrong shirt or something.
Right.
So I did, and I went up there and I did, and apparently it went well, and it just flowed from there.
Oh, isn't that lovely? What did you set out in life to be?
You know, people used to ask me when I was young, what do you want to be when you grow up? And apparently I'm mortally embarrassed by this, but I said a father.
Why is that a problem? That's beautiful.
Well, no, because you know, most little kids want to be a fireman or an astronaut or a police officer or something like that. But I wanted to be a father. And to this day, when people say, what's your greatest achievement? And they're expecting some massive real estate deal. And we've done plenty of those. But no, my greatest achievement is being a great dad to my kid. You know, that's what I think is really important. We can share our knowledge and what we spent a lifetime accumulating to help someone else's path be a bit faster and shorter than it otherwise might have been.
You know, that's very funny because I usually don't hear that from men. I usually hear I'm a great mother from women. Men don't tend to focus on that. So congratulations.
Well, thank you.
How old is your child?
She's 23 now.
And what is she doing?
You know, she just graduated with a Bachelor of Entrepreneurship and she started her own clothing brand.
And there you have it. What is a trait of a good father?
Oh, gosh. Firstly, you've got to listen. You've got to be there. You've got to be present.
Yeah.
And you've got to listen to their stories and you've got to interact with them and you've got to show by example. I'll never forget my daughter would read and other parents would say, how do you get to read? We've tried not giving them dessert unless they've read a chapter of a book. And I said, that's bribery and that's horrible. I said, it's super simple. How I got my kid to read is I just picked up a book and I would sit down on the couch and read it. And eventually after 10, 15 minutes, she'd come to me and sit on the couch next to me and say, what are you doing? And I said, I'm reading this really interesting book. Now, you can't lie. You can't read a boring book and then make out that you've got to. And why would you read a boring book anyway?
Right? There's a lot of great ones.
Yeah, I'm reading this really interesting book. And I told her a few snippets about it and she'd wander away. And then 10 minutes later, she'd come up, curl up beside me on the couch with another book. And you can't leave it and then say, yes, the formula worked. You've got to say after a while, what are you reading? And blow me down if she wouldn't say, this is such a cool book, Dad. I think you'd enjoy it. And she'd explain bits about it.
Oh, I love
Kids
that.
emulate us more than we realize. What we say, whether we swear or not in front of them, whether we get drunk in front of them or not. Not that I did, because I'm blessed with this genetic disposition that I don't happen to like alcohol, which is really weird.
Join the club.
Yeah, I just don't like it.
I don't either.
And it's doubly odd because I've owned vineyards. I've created vineyards out of nothing, and I still don't drink. So people would say, oh, you really like wine, do you? I say, no, I like real estate deals. But
that's so funny. I love that. So now we decided you wanted to be a dad, but you didn't go to school to be a dad.
No. So I came from parents who never had the opportunity to go to university because of the war and everything else. So they drummed into my sister and I that to do well in life, you have to study hard and get a degree.
Yeah, I got that memo.
Yeah, when you're told that often enough, when you finish school, you don't think twice about it. Off you go to university, right?
Right. That's exactly what I mean, by the time I got there, I was so frustrated with whatever system I was learning and it just didn't make sense to me to spend all that time there. I got 2 degrees in 3 years.
Well, that's pretty good. I took a bit longer. I ended up spending a lot of time at university, but here's why. I looked around at me at the people with the degrees, the ones that I'd been led to believe would be well off.
Right.
And it seemed to me that they wore very modest clothes. They drove rather small homes. They lived in kind of modest houses.
Yeah.
And I thought there's something wrong with this equation that degrees equates to wealth. So I
Did
took
you
it
really
upon myself.
learn that? That was amazing.
Yeah, I took it upon myself,
yeah.
though, to make a study of the rich. I wanted to know, what do the rich have in common? Thinking, perhaps somewhat naively, if I could identify 30 or 40 things that they did have in common, and if I could emulate them, I'd have a good shot of being rich. Great theory, right?
I love it.
The challenge was, I could hardly find anything that the rich had in common. It wasn't age. Bill Gates had made his first billion in his early 20s.
Right.
It wasn't gender. It wasn't religion. It wasn't whether you're an immigrant or not, whether you were the firstborn or the lastborn or anywhere in between. I could only find 2 things that the rich had in common.
Which were?
One of them was that almost without exception, the rich either made their money or held their wealth in real estate. And I thought, if that's all it is, I can do that.
I wish I'd gotten that memo sooner.
Well, that's why I'm passionate about sharing it, because Forbes, learned everything the hard way. I didn't really have mentors along the way.
Right.
So I wish I had, because I think I could have shaved decades off my learning curve.
Got it. I agree.
So I set out to buy my first house. I found one that I thought was really good. I had to get student loans. I went to 4 separate banks and got 4 student loans to get the down payment.
Yeah.
And fortunately, none of the banks asked me if I was also going to other banks, because integrity would have compelled me to reveal the truth. That was my down payment. So then I had to get a mortgage. And I went to my first bank manager and I sat down and gave my spiel. And he waited very politely and patiently till I'd finished talking.
Right.
And then when I stopped, he said, "Are you done?" And I thought, that's an odd question, but I said yes. He said, "This is a hoax, isn't it? This is a university prank." And I was devastated because I was serious about wanting to buy this. And he thought it was a hoax.
How old were you at the time?
Oh, 17, 18. But fortunately, I didn't think to myself, well, I'm clearly not cut out for real estate. I better try my hand at something else. I went to bank after bank after bank. It's what you said way at the beginning. No does not mean no. It is a way of saying we've got to figure out another way of doing this.
And so so the 17-year-old is now attempting to get a mortgage, and nobody wants to give it to you.
No.
Okay.
But about my 8th mortgage broker, he listened to me and he said, "You know what? I'll take a chance on you." And I would have much preferred to hear, "Oh my God, that's such a good deal. I wish I'd found it." But yes, of course we'll fund it. But I was happy with, "I'll take a chance."
Yeah.
And a funny thing happened. At the end of the first month, I collected rent. There was an old wooden villa divided into 2 and 2 more rentable units out the back. The rent I collected in that first month was more than that month's allocation of mortgage payment, insurance, maintenance, you name it, property taxes. I had made a profit and I hadn't worked for it. And I thought, oh my gosh,
17.
I've got to do this again. So I did it again and again and again. It took 4 years to get an honors bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, right? Not the easiest course around. And the university came to me and said, "Dolph, it's only 1 more year for a master's. Why don't you do that?" And I said, "Because," and I didn't have an answer. So I did it.
Oh, wow.
And halfway through that, they said, "You're doing so well. Why don't you switch to doing a PhD?" And I said, "Because," again, I didn't have an answer. So I did that. And the moral of this part is make sure you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Otherwise, you end up leading other people's lives.
Correct. Does it matter that you have a PhD? Has it ever really affected your life?
Well, actually, people do say...
They do respect it. I have a doctorate. Trust me, I get there's a level of respect.
They say, wasn't it a waste of 8 years getting a PhD? And I don't think it was a total waste. And I don't think I'm just saying that to talk myself out of feeling bad. Because when you study things, you don't learn facts and figures. I learned the operating characteristics of valves. And I'm not talking about faucet type valves, but valve radio type valves. And they're not used anymore, nor are transistors really. It's all integrated circuits, you name it. But I also spent 8 years finding creative ways of solving challenges.
Yes.
Here's a problem, find a solution. It's creativity. You get it in architecture, sculpture, creative writing, engineering.
Starting a business.
Starting it. So an engineering degree is actually a great training for doing anything in life. So it wasn't wasted.
Well, I mean, I got a degree in political science. I got a degree in communication. My poli-sci degree just makes me frustrated listening to the news.
I can imagine.
It really does.
Yeah.
But I always said the only thing that I really learned from college was the architecture of research.
Yes.
I know how to research, and I
yes.
also don't take no.
Yeah.
And the lesson that I learned, and I love to share this, and I'd love you to hear it, is that I got to this particular college, and it was not the Ivy League I thought I was going to get into. I was top of my class, but not the top.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're picking one Yale student from all of the high schools and one Harvard from all, I didn't get in where I thought I was going to go, even though I was 23 out of almost 3,000.
Wow.
I know, very impressive, I thought.
It is.
And so I ended up at the University of Rochester, which, even though private, expensive school, is a feeder school for all of the kids who were smart enough but didn't get into the Ivy League schools. So I take my very first test. It's a blue book test where you have to write, and it's in American History 101. And I opened the book, so excited. I'd always gotten A's my entire life, and it says C+. What the hell? What? And I marched myself down to Professor Regenstrief's office as a 16-year-old and said, "Excuse me, I think there's a problem here." He said, "What's the problem?" I said, "Every answer in this book is right. Why did I get a C+?" And he said, "Because welcome to the University of Rochester. Every answer in everybody's book is right. And we mark on a bell curve. The middle of the bell is a C."
Whoa.
And the most important lesson I ever learned in college was my very first year. I said to him, "Questions get you answers. What do you do to get an A?" He said, "See all that recommended reading at the bottom? You have to be willing to do what no one's willing else to do to get what no one else has.
That's true. That's true in life in general. What a great lesson.
It was my best and first and biggest lesson in life, because I'm always willing to do what other people won't. I see things, and when you realize that it's not always obvious.
Yes.
That you have to dig, you have to ask, you have to research, you have to listen to podcasts, you have to meet people if you want to grow and learn. So that was my big lesson there.
That is so cool.
I know, right?
So I finished this 8 years of university. Think back to my parents. Degrees equates to wealth. So do you think they were proud of their little boy getting a PhD? Of course they were. They were sitting by the telephone waiting for me to announce the acceptance of a job.
Oh.
And I confess, Forbes, I went to 2 job interviews, and at the end of the second one, I was offered a job at $32,000 a year, which back then was a lot of money.
But would not have covered the debt.
No, but unfortunately for them, well, no, there's no debt outside of America. It costs a lot of money to go to university, about $300 a year to register.
Are you kidding me?
Well, and medical things are free too.
Are we just nuts in the U.S.?
Well, I love it here, but in general, we're a bit nuts on a few.
When we leave
topics.
college, there was a $250,000 debt that
for
my
many
parents.
people. Student debt's a big thing, and not overseas. It's free.
Oh wow! All right,
you pay for it in your taxes. But anyway, I was offered a job at $32,000. The week before, I'd completed a real estate deal that netted me $35,000. I remember thinking, why would anyone in his or her right mind work for 50 hours, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks of the year for $32,000 when in 1 week you can make 35, take the rest of the year off, go and read books on beaches or do whatever, do another deal. So I never took that job, and to this day, I've never had one.
What was your parents' reaction?
I was 35 years old and visited my parents. They were living back in Europe. They picked me up from the airport. And my mother said, you know, Dolph, it's not too late. And I looked at my watch thinking, not too late for what? Maybe dinner with an aunt or something. I said, for what? She said, to get a job. I said, why would I want a job? She said, you don't have a pension plan, which is outside of America speak for a 401k or an IRA.
Right, no, I get it.
I said, my real estate's my pension.
Right.
And 2 years later, I visited them. She said, you know, maybe you did the right thing. And I was so happy that she said that, but I would have preferred her to be able to say it without the word maybe in it. How about just, you did the right thing? And my point is to you and the listeners is many people think that we need a job to represent who we are, what we do in this world, what our contribution is, and how we make money. And it's not the same for everyone.
But here's the irony. And I almost, that book called Secrets They Don't Want You to Know. I don't think we want everyone to know this. I'm going to tell you why. Because if everyone, I think Cher said it many years ago when they were toll takers on the road. She said one of the reasons that if everyone was a rock star, no one would be taking toll money. And so as I'm listening to Dolph, and I'm going to say that you're in the right place at the right time. If you're hearing this, not everyone should be without a job. Otherwise, it'd be absolute anarchy. There'd be nobody at the bank, at the grocery store. And so the crazy thing about what he's saying right now is I think it's for the people who are ready for it. By the way, there's no qualification. You don't have to be elite. You don't have to be educated. You just have to listen. And that alone, and knowing that only a small segment of people will ever listen to you and I, that those people are ahead of the game in so many ways. So if you are someone who says, this job that I have that's got me chained to a desk and chained to a boss I don't like and chained to, I think about my ex-sister-in-law. She was an oncology nurse. This woman devoted her life. She had 4 kids, but she devoted her life to patients and other people. But she was so giving that she always got looked over for vacation time.
Right.
She had like the top tenure, but someone else gets it, and she was
she
kind
never
of
complained.
Never
complained. They thought she's a good one to keep having it work.
And you know what? You get what you tolerate.
Yes.
She missed out on so many family vacations because she was always giving to other people. So number one, they tell you when you're in an airplane to put that mask on you first. And that's the case because if you don't survive. So if you don't have a side hustle, even if you have a job now, you're missing out on that extra money for holidays, for vacation, to enjoy your children. So I'm going to recommend that you pull your seat up a little closer, tuck your headphones in a little, okay, what is Dolph talking about? One of the things I'm just showing right now is one of his many books called 101 Ways to Massively Increase the Value of Your Real Estate Without Spending Much Money. Most people believe to be in real estate, you have to start with money. True or false?
Absolutely false. Absolutely false. I started with 0 money. I came from a family, my parents ran a convenience store when we lived in Australia for 2 years. They paid rent to a landlord once a month. And I remember as a kid thinking, why does he get so much money, the landlord, when he hasn't spent 1 hour behind the counter, whereas my parents are there 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Oh.
Interesting thought.
Ownership, right.
Yeah. So came from no money, and you do not need money to buy real estate. Is it easy if you have money? Yes. Any fool with $20 million in their pocket can go and buy a $20 million building.
Right.
But what I teach people is how to buy a $20 million building even if you don't have money.
You know, it's funny. I was just thinking about one of the visuals that I remember last time I watched you speak was that alleyway next to the restaurant.
Oh, yes.
So you went on a quest. Talk to me about 52 and 52.
Okay, well, so you said in 52 days, and I've got to keep a sense of reality here. It was 52 homes in 52 weeks.
Oh, okay.
So what happened? I was here in Phoenix. I have an office actually not far from here. And I had an appointment cancel on me, so I got on a flight to Vegas. It's only 37 minutes by air to go to Vegas. And I came back just before 5 o'clock when our office was closing. And as the staff were leaving, they said, "Where did you go for the afternoon?" I said, "I went up to Vegas." They said, "To gamble?" I said, "No, I don't gamble. The real jackpots are in the suburbs." Real estate, right? And they said, "Well, what did you do?" I said, "Here's the thing. I bought a house, but the crazy thing about it is it didn't require any of my own cash, and it's cash flow positive from day one."
Okay, explain how that happened.
Okay, but think of this. We run a company that invests in real estate, and we have an educational division that teaches others how to do it. And my staff said, "You can't do that." And I thought, if my staff think that you can't buy a property without using any of your own cash and it's cash flow positive, then I bet the rest of the world feels the same way.
Yes.
So I made a public announcement the next day that I was going to buy one house for a week for an entire year without using any of my own money and all cash flow positive.
Okay, can you share the secret of the first house? Because Mama over here wants to know.
Yes. And after 3 months, I'd only bought 2 homes. And I thought, why did I have to go public with this? I'm not only going to have egg on my face, I'm going to have an entire omelet. But then I got into the swing of things, and I could buy 3 in a day, sometimes sight unseen.
How?
So
What am
to,
I
to
looking at?
explain how, let's go into it a bit.
Okay.
So here in the United States, when you do not pay the mortgage on time, you go into what's called foreclosure. It's a uniquely American word. In other countries, it's called a mortgagee sale or redemption sale, but you go into foreclosure.
Okay.
And by law, the banks can't just foreclose on you one day at random and turn up and take it.
Like
They have
Facebook.
to issue what's called an NOD. It stands for Notice of Default, that has to be published in a publicly available printed copy or online or whatever.
Okay.
So every day I would read the Las Vegas Legal Daily News. It has births, deaths, marriages, company formations, company dissolutions, and NODs. So you get a list of all the properties that in 90 days' time are going to go into foreclosure.
I'm writing this down, the NOD.
All right. So then you go to these homes and you knock on the door, and you don't say something daft like, "Hey, buddy, you lose them, I buy them." That's rude, right?
Yeah.
But you say, "Hey, I understand your house is in trouble." Not you're in trouble. I
Right.
understand your house is in trouble. And more often than not, they'd say, "No, it isn't." And they'd slam the door in your face. And then 90 days later, you see they've gone into foreclosure. But every now and then someone would say, "Yeah, you know, I came here thinking it was going to be my new break, but my girlfriend left me or my boyfriend left me. And now I owe the bank $5,000. And I just want to go back home to Minnesota or Boston or wherever they came from."
Okay.
And then I'd say, "Well, I don't know if I can help you, but if I could, how would that look?"
Mm.
Now, remember, they're in pre-foreclosure. They've got a big black X by their name. If they don't dig themselves out of their hole, they are not going to be able to buy a car, let alone a house, for another 10 years, right? They're going to be a
Okay.
big black X. So more often than not, they'd say, "Well, if you pay the $5,000 I owe the bank, I will quit claim deed you this property," because they've got debt on it. Plus they owe that they're now behind, they're in pre-foreclosure. So they want me to pay off the debt, and then I'd get the house.
Right.
So I do that. I pay them $5,000, and I now own the house with this quit claim deed. I would add to them, though, I'd say, "Hey, would you mind staying on the mortgage for a little while?" And they say, "Stay on the mortgage? I can't pay it now. That's why I'm in trouble. Why would I stay on the mortgage?" And I say, "Well, listen, I'll pay the mortgage for you in your name. The advantage is your credit will go back up. So in my name, with my payments, your credit will go. Well, how do I know you'll pay? Well, I'm putting 5,000 in now. If I don't pay it, we're all going to lose the house, and I'll lose my money and you'll lose." "Okay, what's in it for me?" I'd say, "Well, your credit goes through the roof." So they would do that. Now, I know your listeners are going to say, "Hang on, you said there was no money going into
Right.
this." Well, I've spent 5,000 so far. Instead of renting it out as a standard rental, I do what's called a lease option. Sometimes it's called a rent to own, but the tenant pays a lease option fee for the right to buy the property in the future. So maybe in 2 years' time, they can buy it for 50,000 more, fixed price, sometimes not a fixed price, sometimes a fixed date, sometimes it's called a lease option. And that lease option fee, guess what I'd charge them? $5,000. So I'm in it for no money. By having a lease option tenant, they think they're going to own it at some stage, so they look after it better than an ordinary tenant.
How did you find the lease option tenant?
Oh, just advertise. Because a lot of people can't get a mortgage easily from a bank. Their credit score is too low. So by giving them a lease option for a $5,000 fee, they lock in the price and they have the right to buy it. And part of their monthly payment goes towards paying down that property if they exercise their option. So there's a vast range of people out there who have difficulty or trouble getting a conventional mortgage. And by getting a lease option, they can get into this home ownership.
Now, track this with me for a second. So let's assume this person comes in. And again, I'm not a real estate guru at all. So now you've bought the house for $5,000, which they ended up paying, but they believe they're going to be able to buy it at a fixed price. But 2 years from now, that the house goes up.
Right.
Now, let's say it goes up a little bit. The money that they pay for the house, do you get all of it?
I don't know what you mean that they paid. So if they have a higher price that they can buy it at, and if they exercise their option, yes, then they pay that higher price.
And so you have
less
to pay
what I owe them, what I owe the bank, the original bank.
Right. So
Right.
at that point, but you don't owe the bank the entire amount.
Well, it's covered by the increased value of the property. You said the
Right.
property's gone up, so the
Right.
bank gets all their money back. And if it's gone up by 50,000, then I get that 50,000
For a no money down investment.
for a
That's not
no
pretty
money
bad.
down investment.
All right. So now that's pretty amazing. You teach this?
Of course. Now, here, there's a really interesting thing,
Okay.
because most mortgages have a clause in them called the due on sale clause. If the property is sold, then the mortgage is due. And remember, we sold the property through this quit claim deed. I needed to avoid the bank manager coming to me and saying, hey, we're going to call this mortgage in. So I'd go to the bank that held the original mortgage and I'd say, I understand you have a mortgage with John and Mary Smith. And he'd look it up and say, oh, yes, they owe us $5,000. And I'd say, well, I'm kind of friends with them and I'm thinking of paying the $5,000 off for them. And he'd say, really? That's very kind of you. Would you like a tea of coffee? And I'd say, no, I'm just as thirsty as I was before I told you that. No, I didn't say that.
That's so
But
funny.
then he'd say, well, that's very generous. I said, but, you know, I want to cover myself, protect my faith. So I'm going to get a quit claim deed. I just want to make sure that you're not going to invoke the due on sale clause. Well, banks don't want to go into foreclosure or take a property into foreclosure. It takes a lot of time, effort, energy, and money for them. So they were very happy to do that. 2 weeks later, I'd be back in his office. I've got some more friends, Judy and John McIntyre. And he'd look at, oh, they owe us $4,500. Yeah, I'm thinking of paying that off too. The bank manager knew what I was doing. You know what happened next, Forbes?
What?
He would call me and say, hey, I think I found some more friends for you.
Ah,
In other words, he would find my deals for me.
wow, because you were helping them pay back the debt that they owed the bank.
Yeah, so I said after 3 months, I'd only done 2 properties. I bought my 52nd property within 9 months.
Oh, wow.
That's the time it takes to create a baby, Forbes. You can buy 52 homes that are self-funding in the time it takes to make a baby.
You know, I had twins. I got to tell you, that was complicated. And I love that you made it simple. And so do you teach people how to do this?
Yes, I've got books on this. One of my books is published by John Wiley & Sons, the biggest publisher in the world, 52 homes in 52 weeks.
Wow. I thought he did in 52 days. I have such faith in him.
Now I take that challenge on.
Now, do you continue to buy homes or is it exhausting or how does that?
You know, I've transitioned from residential real estate to commercial real estate, and
Right.
that's a whole nother topic we could talk. There are so many advantages of commercial real estate that I'm not really interested in owning rental homes.
You are so enthusiastic about what you do. I don't share that enthusiasm for real estate. I find it time consuming and people intensive. What's a common trait that you need to have to be successful in real estate?
I think if you're good with numbers, that really helps.
Okay.
You know, when I know that a property is generating 100,000 in rent and cap rates of 5%, I know it's worth 2 million because 100,000 divided by 10% would be 1 million, divided by 5%, half is doubles 2 million. That really helps, but it's not a requirement. I've got students who are hopeless with numbers and probably still are, and they still love counting the cash they have on a calculator.
Really?
Doesn't matter, but it does help, yes.
So you discover that that's one of the secrets to being wealthy. Is part of it
No, curiosity.
curiosity?
Being
Okay.
curious about things. How could I do this differently? That's the genesis of this book, because we're talking about ways of increasing the value of a property way beyond the money you're spending to get that improvement.
Right.
There's no other investment I know. This is part of my excitement for real estate, where once you've bought it, whether it's 100,000 or 10 million, once you've bought it, you can spend a little bit of money and massively increase its value. If you buy $100,000 worth of stock on the share market,
Right.
What can you do to increase its value?
Nothing.
Write letters of encouragement to the directors, hoping that they'll have a good day. No, you can hope and pray. But
Now-
when you buy a house,
Right.
by putting little flowers and geranium flowers or chrysanthemums in a flower garden, you can increase it. By painting it for $2,000, you can increase the value by $20,000.
Oh, that's interesting. What's your take on Airbnbs?
I think, some people have done really well, and I think it's opened up new possibilities, a bit like Uber. We used to have taxis to get around. There was a standard thing. You had to go somewhere else. You stay in a hotel. Now Airbnbs have really opened up the possibilities. I think the hype was bigger than the reality. COVID helped Airbnb because we needed to do, and you'll barely remember this term, but remember when we all were encouraged to do social distancing?
I do.
Yes, well, it's hard to do social distancing in the foyer of a hotel with tons of other guests coming and going, and concierge was in an Airbnb. It's just you. So they gained popularity. That way, profits were so huge that everyone bought houses, and now supply is greater than demand, and everyone's trying to sell them, and their interest rates are high. So it was a bit of a fad, and some people will continue to do well, but it's a tough game. I would rather just have a piece of commercial real estate with a 10-year lease. And the most frequent call I get from my commercial tenants is, Dolph, can we please get an extension on the lease? And I'll look it up and say, but you've still got 3 years to run. And they'll say, yeah, anyway, getting back to the question, can we please get an extension on our lease? Why do they want an extension on their lease when they've still got 3 years to run? Because part of their goodwill is how long the lease still has to go. If they want to sell the building, they can sell the business. It can sell for a higher price if they've got a long lease than a short one.
Oh, that's an interesting.
So our interests are very much aligned. It's a very cool thing about
I do think, though, in real estate, you have to have a lot of energy. You really do. It's one of those things. I mean, I parcel out my energy in different ways, but you have to kind of stay on top of it and be in that little bit of a hustle, yes?
To a certain extent, or you get property managers in.
Yeah, okay, well, that's valid too.
Like the things I own in Phoenix, I manage myself because I keep my finger in the pie, but anything outside it, I don't manage it.
Interesting.
Those calls go to someone else and you get a monthly statement from them.
You guys, are you intrigued by this? Because meeting Dolph, when I first heard him, watch him do his real estate, just share that story about the restaurant. Real estate sometimes exists in the most unusual ways. Share that story if you would.
Well, it was an old building. It used to be a woolen mills where they used to spin wool into yarn, and then that industry died and it became a gym, like an exercise gym, and then that died and no one knew what to do with it. And it was very near a tertiary educational institute. So we looked at converting it into student accommodation. But instead of just taking a gamble, what I did is I ran what's called a focus group, where we invited students to come in and share what do they want in accommodation.
That's so genius, which we do with products all the time, and most businesses never do that.
And we got so many insights, like they don't want keys because they lose them and then they can't get in. But more importantly, if someone else finds them, they might be able to get into their bedroom and all that sort of thing. So they wanted electronic locks. They wanted cameras everywhere. They wanted high-speed internet. We were the first ones to put fiber optic pipes into every room.
Oh.
It was the fastest in town at the time. They wanted a stovetop, and they wanted microwaves, and they wanted double beds, not single beds, because even if parents didn't encourage them to do things that you normally do in a double bed, we all knew that their parents did that too. So just stop us. No, when you think about it, it's so logical, right? We think our younger generation, and certainly our parents, shouldn't be doing it, but we had every right to do it all along. That's just nonsense, get real. So we would incorporate all these things. We were charging like hundreds of dollars more per month than the next best competition, and we had a 4-year waiting list.
Oh my gosh.
When you give people what they want, they'll come from miles to get it.
Those are such great nuggets. Guys, I hope that you're taking notes. We're not taking any breaks during this podcast today. We're going to completely go straight.
We don't have time for a break.
No, it's extraordinary.
So getting back to that alley, on the ground floor, you should always have some commercial operation. Coffee shops are really good, restaurants. So we put a restaurant on the ground floor, and there was this alleyway there. You've seen it. We can't show a visual right now. I didn't bring it. But it looked horrible. It had a burnt wall on one side and gravel and dumpsters, and it was really ugly
Typical
and dirty
alley.
and filthy. It was horrible. You wouldn't want to be there late at night in case you got accosted.
Right.
And then the next slide I show, as you've seen, is what we turned it into. And we made that restaurant, it had the highest rental of any restaurant in town.
He
because
took
it was
the
so
alleyway, which we have
appealing.
seen many times, but it would never have dawned on me, or probably many of you. The alleyway was just between the buildings. He said, that real estate, did you own that real estate?
Yeah,
did
we
you
owned
have
it. Mm-hmm.
So you already owned it, and you took and made it an alleyway into an extension, an outdoor eating
Outdoor
area.
dining area, with the lights hanging around and tables and chairs and all paved with cobblestones. And and it went from being downright ugly to kind of appealing. Like if it were in town, I'd say, let's have dinner there tonight, just have a look at it. So and that's why you're only limited by your imagination. So with real estate, you can increase the value way beyond the cost of that increase. And I always say the most valuable piece of real estate is the 6 inches, give or take an inch or two, between your right ear and your left ear, because it's what you create in that space that will determine your success in any industry. Your success, and you've been not blessed because you have been blessed with it, but you've also engineered a lot of it. You have created a lot of success because you had the foresight to think what works, to ask people questions. You know, it's the quality of our questions that determines the quality of our lives.
You say that one more time slower.
The quality of our questions determines the quality of our lives. If you're not getting the results you want, ask different questions.
Yes, and that is where mentors and masterminds come in, because you do want to be able to be around people who are, sometimes you don't even realize what you don't know.
Exactly.
And you're like, wow, I never even thought of that.
Right.
And now that I'm thinking of that, going, I own some buildings. Have we thought about creating amazing outdoor areas? More money to be made in commercial real estate?
Oh, a lot more. A lot more.
But a lot more to get started. You're not running around and having people just give you
No,
their
it's
buildings.
actually easy, I think, to get started, because when you think of it, when it comes to a house, the value of a house is based on comps. It's short for comparables. If a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, certain age, condition, size, whatnot, somewhere in a street sells for 450,000, say, then a similar house, same age, same condition, around the corner, up the road, down, it will sell for roughly the same price. It doesn't even matter whether it's tenanted or not. It's probably a bit better if it's vacant, because if the buyer wants to live in it, they can move in straight away.
Right.
But the value is based on comps. When it comes to commercial real estate, literally the value of a commercial building is a multiple of its rental income.
Oh, really?
So if we can figure out a way of doubling the rent, we have doubled the value. So we go out this afternoon, Forbes, we look for a place, it's a commercial building, it's just a square box, it's horrible. And it's leased by a thrift store, and they don't make a lot of money, and they're paying $12 a foot. And their lease expires in 3 months. We don't buy the building yet, because what are we going to do with it, right? And $12 a foot isn't good. But let's say we go to all the coffee chains, Pete's Coffee, Gloria Bean, Seattle's Best, Starbucks, you name it, and we find someone who wants to run a coffee shop there because the foot counts high, and they're willing to pay $24 a foot, and we sign them up on an LOI, then we have doubled the rent. By doubling the rent, the value has doubled. Let's say we can buy this building for $1 million.
Right.
Because it's rented at $12 a foot. But with our LOI from this coffee shop, it's worth $2 million. Right, we get deferred settlement, we go to the bank, we have here an appraisal at $2 million. The bank says, well, it's not residential, you know, we might give you 80%. We're only going to give you 50%. Well, guess what, folks? 50% of $2 million is our purchase price.
Right.
We buy it with no cash.
Oh, you're so good. Oh, you guys, how intrigued are you? I'm going out right now after this, Dolph, and I'm going to go peruse around Phoenix and find thrift stores with a very low. How do you figure out how the cost per square foot is something you've asked them or you research on?
So the cost per square foot is based on what the market is willing to bear. And it's a very interesting concept. It's called cap rate. It literally means the rate at which you capitalize the rental to arrive at the value of the building.
Got it.
So at a 10% cap rate, 100,000 of income, that caps out at a $1 million value for the building. And we get that number from market, recent sales, and it depends on the quality of the building. You've got what's called A grade, B grade, and C grade.
Okay.
But everyone knows in their market, like here in the Phoenix market right now, cap rates are roughly 6.2%. So if we can find a building that's returning us 8%, technically we could buy it at 8% and then sell it at 6.2%. We've made profit.
Right.
But you pay tax on it, so why sell it? People who sell tend to live long enough to regret it. So we
no, don't let that one go that fast. People who sell live long enough to regret it.
Oh my gosh. So I happened to bring this book in at random. It wouldn't be the book I would choose. I would have brought any of my other ones. But on the back, you see a house here.
Right.
This is a house my parents got in 1968. I know that's long before many of your grandparents were born and all that.
Right.
But who cares? I'm old. Doesn't matter. And so we bought it in 1968 for $5,000. And exactly 10 years later, they sold it for $32,000. Now think it through. That's a big profit.
Yep.
It is so much profit. That was more money than my father earned by having a job for 10 years. So for them, it was an enormous amount of money.
Yes.
Absolutely huge. Not only was it more money than he earned in 10 years, but it meant we had a place to live rent-free for 10 years.
Right.
And they sold it and they thought they'd done well. And now when you go into Zillow, $875,000. They could have made another $840,000 tax-free, plus gotten what, 50 years of rental income.
No one would have known. My parents did the same thing in 1950, maybe 62, 63. They bought their house for $64,000 on Long Island. And 40 years later, ended up selling it when they passed away for about $360,000. They never moved our house. They didn't understand real estate. They didn't understand how they could have sold it at any one point. And like you said, made a lot of money to then go live a different lifestyle.
Right.
But they didn't. They just they played that very small game. They passed away, and the house sold for $360,000. I then went back, maybe 4 or 5 years later. The house is $640,000. I'm like,
Doubled again.
who buys a $640,000 1,300 square foot? But I will tell you what, that's what the market was bearing. And is this going to happen over and over again? I mean, that kind of multiple is insane.
I bet if you looked right now on Zillow, what your parents' house is worth now, it'll be gone from 640 to even more. It's probably
How can you do that?
again.
But the incomes have not changed that much. Who's affording all of this?
Well, there are two reasons why home values go up. One is through a process of inflation, and it's really deflation of currency. So whereas today it takes 10 units of currency, $10 to buy a dozen grade A pasture-raised eggs, 5 years ago it was only $6. So that's just the value of money's gone down. You need more units of currency to express what a dozen eggs is worth, or a bottle of milk, or a car. And by the way, the government loves inflation in general because our taxation is progressive.
Right.
As our income goes up, we pay proportionately more in tax. So it's to their benefit that we have inflation. Everyone gets paid more, but they collect a bigger share of it.
Okay.
That's right. The other reason why it goes up is we still have a population that's increasing. We have increased demand, and supply, not only is it the same, it's gone down. We've got a shortage, a chronic shortage right now of 4.1 million homes in this country.
Wow.
That's what's fueling the demand. And proof of that is if you look at Japan, and I'm a big fan of Japan. I love the culture, I love the food, I learned the language as a kid. If you go there now, there are 16 million homes on the market that you can buy for about $100, but you'd be a fool to, because you can't get a tenant, because their population is shrinking. They're currently 127 million. They predict that within five decades, it'll be down to 80 million. In fact, this week I read that Japan, I remember Japan as the number 2. It was the United States number 1, Japan number 2. Then about 5 years ago, China edged out Japan, and Japan
What happened in Japan that just the population decreasing?
Population shrinking. They don't have any immigration to speak of, and they've got fewer births than deaths. So it's collapsing. Kindergartens are closing down. Schools are closing down.
Wow. You don't really think about that, do you?
Well, I think about it all the time when I go there and when I do stuff like that. And that's why I love it here, because our population's still growing. Growth fuels the economy.
Fascinating. So let's see, what are some of the takeaways? 1, don't sell your parents' house.
Yes.
As good as it looks, it's not as good as, I remember thinking, how could it be that much? And I wish I'd known then what I know now. So when 2008 hit and everything crashed, did you buy things during that time?
Well, after the crash, yes. But even I was cautious, and I kicked myself. Now, there's a house down the road that sold for $6,000. And it was a horrible house. I won't use more colorful words, but it was terrible.
Right.
And I thought, the market may not recover. It may take years to recover. What if I have to spend a lot of money doing it up? What if there's a leaning? What if? And I didn't buy it. And now it's worth $200,000.
There you go.
Now, fortunately, all the houses I already had here in Phoenix, I bought 2 at $175 each. They dropped down to about $80,000. We had a massive downturn here in Phoenix.
Okay.
And I was tempted to do it. Most people I know would just hand the keys back to the bank, but I didn't. Rents still stayed reasonably high because people still had to live somewhere.
Right.
And now they are worth 2.5 times what they were before the crash.
Wow.
So just hang on. People who sell real estate tend to live long enough to regret it. And I had a situation, gosh, I remember it so clearly and I'm embarrassed, where my neighbor's house went on the market and it was dilapidated and needed a paint. And I remember thinking, if only someone would buy it and paint it, it would make my house look better. And then someone did eventually buy it and paint. And then it sold for treble what they paid. And I thought, I should have been the one. You learn these lessons the hard way, right? That's where I needed a mentor. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing with other people that, yes, you can do this.
Did you have a good mentor at all for real estate?
No, for the most part, I learned the hard way. I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of them. But that's how you learn quickest. Occasionally, I had people who pointed me in the right direction, and I'm very grateful to them.
Sorry, so now let's just completely shift gears. We have a whole real estate conversation. If you guys want to know more, where do we go to learn more about this?
Oh, so I've got a website, my full name, dolphdarrus.com, but I'm also running an event. It's a free event on March the 14th, where I'm going to share with people how you can find it, what you do to find these deals, how you find them, how you then analyze them to see if they're any good, and if they're good, how you can take them down.
Now, this will air and live forever. So is there a website in there that you will always be able to do that, or how's the best way to?
Yes, the best way to get the forever is dolphdarrus.com.
Okay, and that'll also be in all our show
Yeah,
notes.
it's my full name, Dolph, DOLF, But to join us on this live webinar, that's also called, it's dolphlive.com. Very easy. Sign up. It's free, and you'll learn a lot, and you'll never learn less, guys. And
You'll never learn less. I love. Is that a good salesman or what? Now let's completely shift gears. You've decided that also personal development is as important. Personal freedoms, spiritual, emotional, financial freedom. You go all the way over to Italy to do something extraordinary. What is that, and why do you do it?
Oh gosh, there's a whole story behind that. I was doing well with real estate. I ran a survey to find out how many of my students became a millionaire within 18 months. And when the results came in, I was devastated because it was fewer than 4%. And to me, that wasn't even statistically significant. Meaning if you take 100 people at random, 4 become millionaires because they marry into money, they win the lottery, they find a brown paper bag on the street, open it, would you believe it? There's $1 million inside and all that. So I vowed to stop teaching until I cracked this nut. And I read over 200 books. I'm blessed to work with a lot of high-level people. I interviewed them. I figured it out. It has nothing to do with me, my rate of speech, my accent, not that I have one, or anything else. No, you have an accent. It's called an American accent. Ask anyone else in the world.
I don't know about that.
So it has everything to do with the subconscious mind of the student. So I developed a course on that, and when we incorporated this material into our real estate teaching, the success went from under 4% to over 80%.
Oh, wow.
And then I found that people want more than just the psychology of how to make money. They want the psychology of what's going on to make their lives better, better relationships, better understanding with their kids, better decision making as to where to live and all that. So we run this event on the shores of Lake Como in Bellagio. It's not a sucky place to go.
No, it's one of the most beautiful places on earth. I'm not mistaken, George Clooney and his wife live there.
And Versace had his home there, King Leopold of Belgium, Franz Liszt the pianist. It's known as the jewel of the Northern Hemisphere. And the interesting thing about this event, Forbes, is there's no agenda. There's no list of things I'm going to teach, because what we teach depends on who shows up and what their needs are to help them go to the next level.
So one of the things, I was just in an environment where we were talking about the word mastermind and how it came from, who's it who created the very first book, the whole concept of masterminding.
Oh, Mastermind and Michael Gerber?
No, it's earlier than that. It's not Norman Vincent Peale. Who wrote Think and Grow Rich?
Oh, Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill. I think it might have been him or those cronies.
Okay.
And I love that he shared about the founding fathers of this country. That was a mastermind.
Right.
Again, with not quite what is the agenda? Oh, we're going to start a new country. When you mastermind, what do you go for? What do you love getting out of a mastermind?
What's the core reason that's holding them back? They think they're having trouble in their relationship because my partner always does this.
Right.
And it may have nothing to do with that. It comes from something that happened to them years ago, and they react to the memory of that and express it by having anger at their partner. And when we can figure out what that is and dissolve it, then we fix it. Financial things. I'll give an example. We are indoctrinated by our parents who try to do well by us. I haven't come across a parent who sets out to be mean to their kids on purpose.
Right.
They try to do the best. So they try to teach their kids that money just doesn't come that easily. We have to work hard for it. So, Mom, I want a bicycle. Well, what do you think, kid? That money grows on trees?
Right.
Money's hard to come by. If you don't work hard for it, you don't deserve it. Money can't buy you happiness. In other words, if you're rich, you're going to be condemned to being unhappy. Money's the root of all evil.
We do say all that to each other. We buy into this book.
Again. And it's easier to get a camel through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get to heaven. In other words, if you're rich, you're condemned to hell. And how do we describe the rich? They're so rich, they're filthy rich. They're so rich, they're stinking rich. We associate being rich with filth and stench. Right. So think about it, Forbes. In this country, when someone wins the lottery, they don't win 10 or 20,000, they win 100 or 200 million. Do you know statistically, in this country and every other Western nation, within 5 years of winning the lottery, 80% of the winners are back to where they were before. And why is that? Because the first few days they think, great, I'm going to tell my boss where to shove it. I'm going to buy a house for my parents. I'm going to get a new car. And then suddenly they think, I'm not going to be happy because money can't buy you happiness. I'm now evil. I haven't worked for it, so I don't deserve it. And I'm filthy and I stink. Subconsciously.
No, I hear you.
And when the subconscious and the conscious are opposed, the subconscious always wins. So within 5 years, they've divested themselves of their newfound wealth. They're poor and happy again. So what we do in Lake Como is we find out what are the dominant thoughts that you've got running in your subconscious mind.
Right. And
we gently dissolve them. And then we replace them with something more empowering. Such as, my poverty helps no one, but my wealth can help a lot of people. Or as the Reverend Ike said, I am a magnet for money.
Yes.
Or money's good. There's nothing inherently good or bad about money. It's what you decide it to be, what you do with it.
We have just 5 minutes left on this broadcast. I would love for you to impart on everyone who's listening, who I think is probably, their heads are spinning. I can feel it. That, oh my gosh, I want to get into real estate. I want to follow up. I want to get a better relationship with money. What's something you just want everyone to know?
And read more. We've lost the art of reading. 20 years ago, there were 46,000 bookstores in this country.
Oh,
We're under 6,000 now. Walden Books is gone, Borders or one of the two is gone. People aren't reading. We're all on social media. And you and I are on social media. We don't completely say it's bad, but don't stop reading. Reading is one of the best. You can spend $30 and 3 hours of your life to read a biography, an autobiography, and you get the essence of someone's entire life. What a great trade-off.
Who's somebody that's inspired you so much?
Oh, so many people. Nassim Taleb, he wrote, Fooled by Randomness and The Black Swan. I just love reading different books. I read all of Tony's books. I've taught on Tony's stage for 20 years.
Tony Robbins.
Yes. And just read more. Joe Dispenza, all of them. Read all of them.
Interesting. I don't know if I have that much time, but I love this concept.
Make time.
Make time. All right.
Time. If it's a priority, you'll have time. Watch one program on TV less. Which benefit do you get today from having watched some silly program
well, now,
4 years ago?
Now hang on to that end, because I'm a very visual person. I love I like audiobooks much better, just because I don't see very well. But I did just watch the autobiography of Michael Jordan, of Tom Brady, of Sylvester Stallone.
That's good. There are good programs, and they're autobiographies. So you learn the essence of someone.
I agree.
I'm saying sometimes these soaps that we see, who killed whom and who slept with whom and all that, they just script write as fantasies to induce us to watch more, so that we watch the ads, because that's their revenue model. And try and watch less of that. If you enjoy it, great. But choose what you do. Don't turn the TV on and scroll to see if you can find in those 600 channels something that's worthy of your time, because you'll waste time.
There you go.
Choose what you want to watch. I want to see that autobiography of Michael Jordan. Can it be an autobiography? He would have had to film it. But anyway,
No. It's about, I will tell you.
Biography.
And obviously I go to watch Tone Lessons. There's a new one out also called You Are What You Eat. They took 21 twins.
But that's all good. That's information.
Obviously I'm educationally oriented. And
Yes.
every once in a while I do chill out on like the TV series Suits. I just binge watched it, because there are some times my brain just needs to unplug.
No, absolutely do, but choose to do that. Don't just do it by default.
I love that. Very, very intentional. What's your hope for mankind?
I see some challenges. I think, in a sense, we're the Roman Empire all over again. If you see and remember from reading about, obviously, the downfall of the Roman Empire, there are elements that we have in common. I think the diversity and disparity we've got between different factions has gotten too big. 20 years ago, what your views were on any of the current political issues and which political spectrum portion you occupy didn't matter. We were still friends, and your politics and now, they have this affiliation, we don't want to know you, sort of thing. I see a trend. I read about it this morning, how the hours we spend in social contact per week has gone down dramatically in the last decade. Fewer meetings, fewer clubs, fewer all kinds of social. So we're becoming islands unto ourselves, beholden to social media. And that has a potential for blowing out and causing a lot of damage. We're losing the art of interacting. We need to interact more.
What do you think about AI?
I think it's going to be here anyway. We need to control it. We need to stay on top of it. But we can't prevent it. It's like saying, 25 years ago, what do you think of the internet? Isn't it going to do a lot of damage? It'll allow terrorists to spread their word.
It already does, yes.
Yeah,
and all of your kids know about sex by the time they're 5.
Is it that late? Wow.
Well, I will tell you, it has an interesting effect, and I'm just glad that I'm not a kid. I'm glad I raised my kids, because it's getting more, I think it's getting a little more and more challenging about what kids have access to, of how dissension is happening among factions. I agree with all of that. Guys, we're down to our last 60 seconds. I want to say thank you to you. What an absolute
it's been my pleasure. It's always a pleasure to hang with you.
Oh, yeah. I know. We're going to go hang in Italy. Well, because it's a funny thing. Around you, I'm reminded I'm smart. Sometimes I, pander down and I just talk to certain people, but I got to be on my toes talking to you. How do people find you?
DolphDarrus.com. It is on the internet. There aren't many people with my name, so it should be pretty easy to find.
Right, and take it from somebody who's named Forbes Riley. Not a lot of people either. Guys, if you love the show, you want to share, like it, you want to tell people about it, whether you find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, or my home right here. Today we are filming live, recording this at Voice America in Phoenix, Arizona. I want to give a big shout out. I can see Jordan and Aaron and Tacey and say, hey! And just to thank you for your loyalty. It's been a wonderful journey for me to be part of this network. Jeff Spinard, who created this, is no longer with us. So to carry on his legacy, as we all get to, do what you set out to do. Stop talking about it. Do it. Take action, and I will see you again next time. I'm Forbes Riley for the Forbes Factor. Bye, everybody.
See you soon.
That was to time, too.
We didn't say once.
Oh, that's the least of my worries.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, no, you have a beautiful way about you.
Well, it's mutual. I think that if we chose to, the beautiful thing is we don't need to do anything extra. But the day we choose to do something, I think it'll be a hit. I think your energy is unique. And one of the things I was about to say, but I didn't want to stop your flow. One of the things I love about you, more than probably anything, is you're smart. And did I tell you that I don't watch much TV? That Judge Judy has a show. I've never watched an episode. It's trash to me. But she wrote a book. I've never written the book. I've never read the book, but I love the title. Beauty Fades, but Dumb is Forever. And what a great book. And the thing I love about you is you're smart. Just the way on stage, the way you express your ideas and get it across, and your quick thinking and all that. That to me is the biggest thing I admire.
And I
and
appreciate
people
that.
in general, men and women.
I admire it too. I come across people, we're just talking about people who are smart and how much fun it is to interact with them. And you don't always meet smart. You meet a lot of copycats. You meet a lot, it's funny. There was a wave. Who did this? Ty Lopez created a whole wave of little junior digital marketers, guys who would just farm out the stuff, charge you $5,000, sell you a load of bullshit, and then never complete it. And he had a whole wave of that. Tony Robbins has created an entire wave of freaking coaches. Everybody's I started with Tony. I'm a life coach. Trust me, you're not Tony. And you're not even,
Not even close, not even 1%.
Right. And so that's been really interesting, this wave of people who are coming into the world. Everyone's a freaking life coach right now. And I hear this, I'm John Maxwell certified. I'm like, how does that mean?
Yeah, who's John Maxwell anyway? Yeah.
Well, but it's an interesting time that we're in at the moment. Do you get a lot of people who
that were trained by Maxwell?
Really? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
But it's like a Tony Robbins, or a lot of people.
Oh, you know what? And everybody just heard me say that on YouTube. Hey, everybody.